If you talk about policing in the United States, you have to decide what version you'll be speaking. And much of that decision has to do with the people with whom you'll be speaking, because they have very different opinions and viewpoints concerning police, depending on who you're speaking to. There are those who love police, support police, and want more police, who have family and friends who are police, who they love very dearly. And the stories being told concerning police is nothing they can imagine being done by any of those whom they love. And because they're loved, nothing you say or show them will convince that they actually took a life unjustly or falsely accused and arrested somebody after savagely beating them beyond recognition. And even if proven that they in fact did these things, they will insist they had good reasons and blame the victim for their own brutalization and or murder. But there are others within society who have not known police to be anything other than criminals with badges, who impose their authority not to enforce the law, but to enforce a domination and control over the most vulnerable within society. It, in fact, is the most vulnerable within society that we see caged up like animals in inhumane conditions, where they then attack and fight and murder each other in total disregard for life. For the system has taught them to either kill or be killed. And that system is the very system alleged to rehabilitate them. And once you've entered it, you are never quite the same, because a level of revelation has been given that cannot be erased, because you are there because of a crime. Yet what you're seeing being committed is far above any level of crime you could imagine. And an ugly truth is discovered, which you cannot unlearn. So a world is created within the world of prison, and survival is conditioned upon the rules and regulations therein. There is no negotiating, only cooperating. And the only way out is either release or death. And many have chosen death by suicide. To know that such a system exists within a land professing liberty and justice for all should make anybody wonder, what is justice? Because if convicted and sent to this place where murders, suicides, rapes, and other vicious crimes are committed and allowed, then that must be their idea of justice, because it is the state which controls and dictates the behavior within. And either they are the author of these things or are totally incapable of solving and preventing crimes, even when placed under lock and key. And if locking them up produces even more heinous crimes than they themselves committed, and you are powerless to stop and or protect them, where does rehabilitation come into play? And who holds the state accountable for the failure to do so while releasing twice the criminal they were before they went in? Because you went in for one thing, but as a condition of your survival, you'll be doing far worse. America has to decide if she wants freedom for herself and herself alone, or freedom for those who claim America as home. Because locked up within her prisons are those whose people were stolen from their land and brought here, or who came here after being invaded by Americans, colonized, and left impoverished. American prisons do not hold white Americans nor arrest them at the same level in which they do all others. There have been no laws created on how to hunt and capture white Americans, nor policies requiring they be stopped and searched if suspected of a crime. There is nothing in the Constitution that guarantees their involuntary slavery if duly convicted of a crime. These things have been created and applied solely to non-white Americans who view police and the arrest they make as a form of protection against non-white Americans who look like me and aren't at liberty to learn their history out of fear it will offend the children of those who enslaved their ancestors if taught in school. That history is in fact American history, for it does tell how America came to be wealthy and the inventions created that propelled into Reconstruction so that she became a world power, visiting other nations with her proclaimed democracy. But is it democracy we have or something else? Does a vote truly influence our government, or is it money? Because if money dictates the actions and rule of law, then the wealthy and the powerful reign supreme. And we are but pawns in a game of chess, protecting a kingdom created for and by them. In whose hands is all the wealth? The few. How many of those actually make it out of poverty? The few. How many of those ever see anything even resembling justice? The few. And how many are able to cut through the pomp and circumstance and call out a government that has long since betrayed the people? The few. And for doing so, where do they end up? Prison. So did they seek to rehabilitate from speaking truth to power? Or is it something that's unwanted as a police state is in progress? Why would they want a police state in the land of liberty and justice, you ask? Surely you don't believe the two work hand in hand. What happened which changed the agenda for the stated purpose of Americans without them knowing it, without them realizing it? Who and what made them pliable to relinquishing their rights to be spied on, surveilled, and have devices put in their cell phones and vehicles to chart their every move? To decree and declare your work is not important, stay home, and leave in debt. To raise the price on apartments and produce mass evictions nationwide while throwing up luxury towers in front of their faces. Who and what is the author of these things? Did you all vote to be displaced and homeless and houseless? Did you all vote to be spied on and monitored? Exactly what did you vote for? And the bigger question is, did you get it? Or were you simply entertained by various clown performances, each attempting to outdo the other in the tricks being played on the people? Whether you were pleased or not, they required you to vote. And for many, many reasons, you did. But if none of these elections actually raised the standard so that living became more than an act of survival that provided a mere few days to rest and relax, yet you spend those days trying to figure out how to make ends meet, it's a fair assumption that your needs are not being considered during an election, because habitual elections have taken place and poverty is increased, while the wealth of the powerful is multiplied. You don't need a conspiracy theory to know that at some point in time, there's going to be an implosion, an outburst from within. And there's no way to possibly contain it once the fire started. It will not be Democrats versus Republicans or Blacks against whites, but those who are sick and tired of being lied to, manipulated, and defrauded, while the guilty and powerful are held blameless as they poison and corrupt the earth and obtain riches, leaving death and starvation behind them. So for that, you need a police state, surveillance, so you can map and chart each and every move of those reduced into poverty in the event they yet believe they have rights, which they can say to the wicked and command them to obey. Look around and see if the voice of the oppressed is being heard. They follow the rules to protest, but they are arrested. They come out peacefully, but are beaten. The demands for justice are loud and clear, but who's responding? Not even a courtesy of a response is given. So they leave, go home, and try again. If investigating a wrongful murder by police, they slander the victim. But if questioned concerning the acts of the officer, they go silent, claiming the investigation prohibits their speaking. Really? kill a man and slander their name publicly, but go silent when questioned concerning the actions of those officers? Really? Yet this is allowed in each and every occurrence, and we allow it. So it is done. It is nonsense, a total, utter nonsense. They get to take a life, slander the life that was lived, go silent and question concerning the actions of those who did it, and conduct an investigation as to why they did it. And finding themselves not guilty, the matter is closed. And you'll run from pillar to post trying to get somebody to listen. I'm persuaded that people across the nation will have to rise to the occasion for what is, in fact, a police state information. There's no single law or politician who can rightly correct or address the countless murders of innocent people or those housed within the prisons of the United States that are so horrific and inhumane. Death has been chosen by many as the better option. If you believe that is deserved due to a crime committed, then what do police deserve who have murdered, raped, and robbed just the same? Analyze your own thinking concerning it and see if you are biased in your thinking or righteous.